Okay. Thank you. Thank you for attending this IFSAM Award session, Generating Impact Through Scholarship. We are honored to have three distinguished scholars with us who have significant contribute to their field, community, academy, and society. I'm Ying Zhang, Deputy Secretary General of IFSAM, and also a professor of management research director at the International University of Japan. Before we officially start the session, I would like to remind the audience, in case that you want to use simultaneous translation function in the Zoom space by following this instruction, look for especially the show caption button and then select translation. Additionally, you can also use chat space for questions. After the introduction of panelists and discussion with them, there will be a space for Q&A. So let me now congratulate to our 2023 awardees, Professor Simon Dolan from Atlanta Business School, Spain, recipient of the IFSAM Award for Excellence in Societally Relevant Management Scholarship, Professor Johnson Mika from the University of Waikato, New Zealand, recipient of the IFSAM Award for Excellence in Indigenous Management Scholarship. And the last but not least, Professor Paris Gowrie from Birmingham University, UK, recipient of the IFSAM Award for Exceptional Service to the Management Field worldwide. If I were to start telling you more about their journey, dedication to the field, community, and society, it would probably take up the whole entire session, which is not our purpose today. We are here to listen to them, learn, and be inspired. Let me just highlight what we have, a summary of their significant contribution, as well as interview recording with each of them available. If you scan this QR here in the screen, in the slides, you can also take a picture and check that later on. And as well, we have an interview recording with our 2022 awardees, Lauren Eden, Professor Emirate of Texas A&M University, US, recipient of IFSAM Award for Excellence in Societally Relevant Management Scholar, and Professor Lynn Cutchin from the University of Sydney, Australia, recipient of IFSAM Award for Excellence in Indigenous Management Scholarship. You can also scan this QR code to access these recordings. Finally, the IFSAM 2024 awards call for nomination is now open. We welcome you to nominate yourself or your peers who deserve for those three categories available here. Here's both link and QR that you can access. Well, finally, no more ado that let's give the floor to our panelists and awardee. Could you please make a brief introduction of yourself first? Let's follow the order of appearing screen. Simon, can you start first, please?
Okay.
The floor is yours.
First of all, thank you very much, Professor Zhang. I'd like to thank, first of all, IFSAM for this prestigious recognition that comes in a time that I've really retired from active work in the academia, even though I was brought back about a year and a half ago, and I'm very happy. My name is Simon Dolan, and I think that I'm a citizen of the world in a sense that I've had the pleasure of being affiliated with different universities in different continents. I think I'm blessed also by speaking about 7 languages, so it makes my communication and my the language that I publish, the language that I give my speeches, very easy. So in the United States, I used to work at the University of Minnesota, at Boston, at Colorado, in Canada for many years. I used to be at the University of Montreal and McGill University, and for the last 18 I was at ESADE Business School in Spain, and about a year and a half ago, I'm affiliated with Advantere School of Management. It's in Madrid, and I'm trying to add value. Who am I? I think it's very easy just to put my name today on the net, and you'll know more about me that I even remember what I've done in the past. I consider myself to be what is an influencer that connects the academia with the professional community. And I do it using different tools. One of them, of course, is publishing in professional journals. In this stage of my career, I don't need to publish in impact factor journals. I've done it many years ago. I published books, not only textbooks for university students, but also I publish book for professionals on the average about 2 or 3 books per year in the last couple of years. And I'm just enjoying. I have a vision about the future, so I created a foundation that's a think tank. It's not for the profit. It's called the Global Future of Work Foundation. And at my age, I really spend my time between the foundation, trying to raise issues connected with the world of work in the future. I'm not a prophet. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that I have the vision of where we are heading, and I think that the world and the people that associated with management were not really prepared for this new world of work. So I'm trying to raise some consciousness. So I think, I'm going to respect the 5 minutes that I was asked to spend, and the rest of it will come probably when I talk a little bit more about the content of my messages and the questions that some of my colleagues will ask me, or the people that are watching this program. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. So next, let's give the floor to Johnson. Johnson, please. Yeah. Let me switch your slide.
Kia ora, Ying Ying, kia ora, whanau awardees. My name is Jason Mika. It's just a huge honour to receive this award for Indigenous Management Scholarship Excellence. I'm speaking to you from Hamilton, New Zealand. It's about 9:30 on a Friday night, and normally, Friday nights are used for watching TV or going out and having fun. But here we are, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm just going to briefly introduce myself using a few slides, since we were sort of given the opportunity to do so. So, first of all, on my mum's side, I'm Tūhoi, which is one of the tribes of the Mātātua Canoe, which is sort of in the Bay of Plenty region of the North Island of New Zealand. And it's really important just to acknowledge our ancestors, and our ancestors happen to be mountains, rivers, but also our ancestors in terms of our grandparents, grandmothers, grandfathers, and so forth, but also our community gathering place. Our marae is Waikirikiri marae. So that's on my mum's side, so acknowledge our whānau on that side, but also on my dad's side, I'm French and Scottish. I think there's a few Europeans amongst us, and so those are my connections to Europe. The next slide, once it shows up, they're pretty huge slides because there's lots of pictures. One of the most important things for me that inspires me is my elders, and the Māori word for elders is kaumātua. And so these are some of the respected elders who I've been fortunate to learn from. Some of them belong to my own tribe, some of them belong to other tribes, but it's just been a real blessing for me to listen to them and their stories and their wisdom and their hardships and their challenges and their successes and their failures as well. And they've been very open about that. And they've inspired me to, I guess, to try to emulate them in my research and the way in which they go about themselves and conduct themselves, but also just to sort of allow me to follow my passion, which is Indigenous business management, research, practice, and teaching. Yeah, next slide. I guess in terms of research areas of impact, the main areas of interest in research for me is around three things. One is, what is a Māori business? What is an Indigenous firm? And I've always been fascinated by that question of what is a Māori business in particular? What's the definition? What's the parameters? And what's the nature of Indigenous firms? And how do they conduct business, and how do we support them to do so and to be successful in their areas of development? The second area of interest for me is Indigenous enterprise development. I was once a business mentor, so I really have great admiration for entrepreneurs and the difficult work that they do. And so I really sort of support that work through Indigenous enterprise development research. These are some colleagues from the government sector who are sort of inquiring as to the question of what is a Māori business. Next slide. Thank you, Ying Ying. So what are the other areas of interest? Once you start studying Indigenous business, it takes you everywhere, because Indigenous business is operating in every industry and sector. One of them is international trade, international business and trade. And so I'm leading a research program called Tauhokoko. Tauhokoko is the Māori word for trade or an exchange. And it's a sort of a 5-year research program on indigenizing trade policy. So what would trade policy look like from an Indigenous perspective if it was designed from that point of view? Another research project that I'm on and is focused on the question of whether or not a circular economy can help achieve sustainable well-being for New Zealanders. It's called Āmiomio. Āmiomio is the sort of Māori word for circularity in Aotearoa. And I guess the main point about this slide deck is there's lots of people doing lots of great stuff, and it's a real honor to be part of all these sort of diverse research teams who are doing Indigenous sort of focused research in a range of areas. So I'll leave it there. Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you very much, Johnson, for your interesting slides and pictures. Now we go to with Professor Paris Gowley, our recipient of the award contributing to the excellent service to the management field worldwide. And here goes your slides. Paris, your floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you are. So this is really a big honor for me to have received this award. I really feel recognized and I feel encouraged. So I did my master and PhD in Uppsala University in Sweden, where I worked for few years, and then I went to Oslo Business School and then to University of Groningen. And for the last 20 plus years, I am in UK, first in Manchester Business School, then King's College London, and now in University of Birmingham. So I have been doing research, a lot of research on multinational corporations and their activities in emerging markets. And in the last decade, in fact, I have done research more on the impact, the externalities multinationals create for the local society and local firms and so on. So in the last decade, I have had 4 very well-funded projects. We can go to next. So I can just go through these last 4 projects. The first one, we had funding from European Union FP7 project, and it was with University of Oxford, La Peranta University, UNGU Merit. And we looked at the impact of multinational enterprises on sustainable development and poverty reduction. In fact, at that time, SDGs were not around, but there were Millennium Development Goals. The main purpose there was to reduce the poverty by 50%. And we studied that. We studied in several countries, in Brazil, in India, in Ghana. and so on. And we have several publications out of it, including a book. So then after that, I just go briefly through these projects. And of course, people can ask questions later. Then we go, I go through the next back. Yeah. So second project is about the impact of ethical behavior in sustainable competitive position. So how can companies be competitive and ethical at the same time? Because companies feel if we are very ethical, we cannot do business in some countries. So this was funded by the Swedish Central Bank's Jubileum Fund, and we did it, finished last year. This is also a very useful project. It talks about bribery and treating workforce as the same way everywhere where multinationals go, and so on. And we had studies in Pakistan, Indonesia, and Mexico. And then the second project, that's why it is bold, because I will talk a little bit more about this after this slide. And that is about the development. Can we develop a business model that can transfer the benefits of technology into jobs and income for marginalized community? This was financed by ESRC, that is Economic and Social Research Council in UK, their Global Challenges Research Fund. And that we just finished, and we are still working on it, and we have several good publications out of it, and few are in the process. And I will come back to this later. Then with number 4, which is now current project, that is creating competitive advantage by serving marginalized communities. European firms and their impact on inclusive development in Latin America. This is financed jointly by ESRC again, and FAPEST, that is the Latin American Research Funding Organization. So there we are trying to see how can multinationals incorporate people from poorer segments into day-to-day economic activities, because multinationals are always blamed that wherever they go, especially in emerging market, they only serve the 10% of the elite population. They don't even bother about the lower segments. So this is ongoing now, and we have here Brazil and Colombia with us, and Manchester Business School is our partner in this. Excel Giro. So then I can talk next slide on a little bit about the project number 3. That is developing the digital model that can help marginalized communities to have a respectable life or confidence and do some business. Here we want we want to develop a model that can enable entrepreneurs and people from marginalized communities to do business with each other and collaborate without paying any commission or fee or anything. We launched our app. We developed and launched an app, and then we did an extensive training program. At one point, we had 65 people in the field to help being in poor communities, telling them how to use it. You only need a 3G phone. How you can do a very short video and upload, and how you can do with business. People don't have to do business. People can just donate 1 cent, 2 cents, 50 cents, whatever. And people were feeling very confident. And then we did a survey to see whether it is helped, whether it has made an impact. So we had 1,800 people, 900 those, this is experimental design, 900 those that had used and received training, used the app and received training, and 900 which did not have they did not use the app and did not receive the training. And then we saw that what were the differences. We have quite extensive statistical modeling and all that, and that paper is in the process now. So if we go back to next slide. So this is the app we developed. Haath, this means hand to hand. This is the logo. We launched it, and we had, as I said, a huge force in the field to help people to learn. It is very, very easy. Just take a photo and click one, and it goes on the app. And there are people just like this girl who is making a textile at home, printing them with hand. And then there are many other, for example, here at the bottom, there is this old lady telling how to make best biryani, just 1 minute, and so on. And so this has been running now for 2-3 years, and we think it is quite useful. We can go to next slide. So we did also, in addition to training, we did lots of very extensive marketing program to let people know in villages, because people don't read newspapers, they don't watch TV. So we had to do billboards. So we had several of these billboards and incidentally, our project coincided with COVID. So then these poor people didn't know what to do and what not to do, although government had set up free medical centers. So then we did that. So I think I leave it here, and then we will see if there are some questions we can go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paris, Simon, and Johnson, for your interesting introduction of yourself and the incredible things that you have done together and contribute to the community, the academy, and also the society in general. Well, each journey is unique, but equally very inspirational. The impact of your hard work is evident, which is why IFSAM Award Committee has selected you as honoree for those awards. However, I would like to ask you, as part of a panel discussion of each of your panelists, in your view, what impact has your research and scholarly activity had, or is it currently having, and how do you measure this impact?
Should I go?
Yeah, please,
Okay.
you can pick up. Yeah, Paris, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, as I discussed, we really think that, as I said, in the last decade, I have been doing research on the poorer communities and the impact of multinational activities in emerging markets. And we do see that people are learning, people are getting more capabilities and so on. And the Bangladesh project, which Hate Haat app, there we in fact did a very systematic study, experimental design, to see whether there has been some impact or not. And we could see that people who are using the app felt more safe during the COVID period. People who are using the app lost less jobs. People who are using the app got lots of confidence and self-respect, which normally they don't. So I think we have been making lots of impact, and of course there is more research needed on this type of aspect. Impact these days is very, very important. All schools and academic organizations are asking for. It's not just getting published in top-level journals. We have to look at what impact our research is making.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Johnson, Simon, would you like to jump in for this question about how you view the impact that you are generating? Simon, it seems that you're about to say something. You are muted again. Can you unmute? Yeah. Okay. Yes, please. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ask me to intervene? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so because it looks like I had some interrupted, you know, my connection was interrupted several times. So I'll try to be again very brief. When I look at what I'm doing in the last couple of years, I can say that I look at my work as it has different dimensions. There is, of course, the dimension of excellence in society-relevant management and scholarship, you know, but this is the typical publications in scientific journals, which was also very instrumental for me because very young, at a very young age, I reached already the top to be a full professor. And then I asked myself at 40 years old, what else? And then I decided that the what else would be in addition to continuing rigorous research, funding, and supervising doctoral students. And fortunately, I had the blessing of training about 30 of them that are all over the world today. I decided to connect with the professionals that will make the impact on society. So how do you do it? Well, I happen to believe that if you want to be nowadays a change agent or even a transformation agent, you need to employ 3 legs. One of them is a concept. So you need to refine a concept and talk about it. But a concept that is not only clear to you, but a concept that when you talk about it, it represents like something like nice music to the people that listen to you, because otherwise they will ignore you. People today have no time. They turn off and they turn away instantly because the technology requires instant gratification. With an interesting message, you will not have that to have an effect. So developing a concept, employing rigor, the rigor that we have in the academia is very important. It's not concept that one day you dream about it, you wake up in the morning and you say, hey, that's what I'm going to do about. And I'll talk about some of the concept is not sufficient. What we also need to
Yeah, seems connection of Simon is not good. He's still here, but we lost the voice.
Yeah. He's there. I think we might have lost him.
He's still here, but just without the camera and the voice. So maybe meanwhile, Johnson, would you like? Okay, he's here again. So, Simon, are you listening to us? Can you hear us? I think, yeah, you are unmuted again.
Simon, maybe you can switch off the camera so that the connection can be a little bit better, and try to speak only.
Yeah, somehow it seems he may not listen to us.
Looks like he's freezing.
Yeah.
Connection is frozen. Kia ora, Ying Yang. Perhaps I might
Yes.
jump in. Thank
Yeah,
you.
please.
I guess my area of research is on Indigenous business and Indigenous management. And one of the questions is, one of the difficulties is finding data on how many Māori or Indigenous firms there are in a particular economy, how many Indigenous businesses there are across the world. And that the sort of the challenge there starts with defining what is an Indigenous firm. And that's been a question that we've been asking in New Zealand for about 30 years in sort of public policy terms. And it wasn't until 2022 that the Stats New Zealand, the official statistics organization for New Zealand, sort of arrived at a sort of a more comprehensive definition of a Māori business, an Indigenous firm. And my research from my doctoral studies, but also what's happened subsequent to that, is sort of focused on that question of defining what is a Māori business. And I was really fortunate to work with a group of agencies and also Māori businesses to really sort of pick up on that question. And as a result of that work, they've got a new definition, and they're sort of improving the quality of Indigenous business statistics so that we're able to sort of get a better idea of how big the Indigenous economy is in New Zealand, what industries it's focused on, and what are its challenges, what are the opportunities, but also if we're sort of to look more broader than that, is how big is the Indigenous global economy, and for us to be a sort of attempt a question like that, we've got to have some idea of how that question of the definition of Indigenous business is sort of approached across the world. And so there's a bit more work to be done there, but at least in New Zealand, we're sort of we're improving what we're doing here. Similarly, in Australia, Canada, the US is doing a bit of work in that area, but there's much more work to be done. So that's one area of impact. The other one is in terms of Indigenous trade. Māori people, Māori tribes back in the sort of 1800s were really at the forefront of New Zealand's international trade. And so our chiefs, our tribes were really sort of engaged in international trade. Colonization changed that. And more recently, however, tribes are really sort of rebuilding their involvement in international trade. And one of the areas of focus now is two things. One is sort of protecting Indigenous rights. So when Indigenous trade is occurring, how Indigenous rights, particularly around intellectual property and cultural rights, but also at the same time, Indigenous opportunity to trade and to do business internationally. How is that enabled? And so a lot of my research focuses on that question of how do you protect, but also how do you enable Indigenous firms to do business globally? And one of the ways in which that's happening now, particularly in free trade agreements between New Zealand and other countries, is Indigenous trade chapters that focus on the question of Indigenous to Indigenous trade, but also Indigenous trade with the rest of the world, and how we enable that through trade policy, trade agreements. And some of my research has supported that sort of that work and that engagement with Indigenous communities. The third area is probably around, I guess, Indigenous entrepreneurship and what sort of works, what kinds of assistance and programs and support works best for Indigenous entrepreneurs to be successful in their enterprise developments. And I guess one of the main areas of focus there is sort of self-determination, the idea that Indigenous peoples have a right to be self-determining, and how that sort of influences the design and creation of enterprise assistance systems which are self-determining, which do resemble Indigenous aspirations and capabilities and preferences. And so we're seeing a lot more of sort of, I guess, Indigenous-led enterprise assistance coming through. So those are sort of 3 years of sort of past impact, but the future impact for me is really around supervision. It's more Indigenous management students who want to do their PhDs and become academics and carry on the research that needs to be done, because there's a lot of research that needs to be done in terms of Indigenous management, Indigenous economies and enterprise. And so that's really a sort of a big area of future impact for me. Kia ora.
It's very, very impressive overview. Have been talking about your research, not only research, it's not only also for publication, but also really change part of the world that you have been involved. Somehow even remind me like if as action research. Well, it's just a way to express that. Well, I know that all of you indeed also very actively involved. Many academic association, for instance, Paris have been very active fellow in like AIB, and also Johnson also in your association in Australia, New Zealand, and also Simon have also was co-founding some association. So do you believe that scholarly association management kind of needs also evolve to increase or maintain their relevance, enhance their impact? If so, how should they do that? Because you all have been very active. Any of you want to take the floor?
Yes, I'm
Please.
I'm keen to have a quick go at it. Thank you for the question. I've been fortunate to be involved with the Australian and New Zealand Academy of Management in New Zealand since I started my PhD, more than 10 years ago, and I've also part of the Academy of Management, and both associations have a commitment to Indigenous management scholarship, research, and teaching and practice, and which is pretty awesome from my point of view. And each association, I think, it's important for each association to think about, well, what is their view on Indigenous development, Indigenous rights, Indigenous challenges, but also Indigenous opportunities, and for them to think about, well, how do they approach that? In the IFSAM case, in the Australian and New Zealand Academy of Management, one of the things that we did there is set up a Indigenous issue special interest group to allow Indigenous and non-Indigenous scholars, researchers, academics to work together on promoting Indigenous scholarship, research, and impact through IFSAM, and which has been great. It's a great forum to be able to sort of support that sort of scholarship. But IFSAM itself is also grappling with the idea of, well, how do they decolonize? How do they indigenize the way in which the academy itself operates, both in terms of its governance, its management, its impact, its conferences, and also its publications and research and advocacy work. And so pretty much the whole organization is starting to think about, well, how do we do that in a practical sense? There's a couple of challenges. Still going, good. There's a couple of challenges which arise. One is, who do you look to for advice? Research. That's good. Who do you look to for advice? And as soon as you look around for Indigenous management scholars in Australia and New Zealand, there's a handful in New Zealand and there's a handful in Australia. And so you quickly sort of exhaust the supply of Indigenous management academics compared to non-Indigenous. So what that means is we have to be very careful about what we ask our Indigenous management scholars to do, and the sort of all the committees that we'd love them all to be on, which, so there's a challenge there in terms of access to the knowledge holders of that Indigenous knowledge. The other challenge is to make sure that we do the work ourselves necessary to understand, well, what are the Indigenous perspectives, aspirations, challenges, opportunities, and capabilities, and what we can do within our own organizations to support that kind of activity. So there's work we can do as an academy, as academy members, governors, managers, and so there's those sorts of aspects, and also in terms of just looking at Academy of Management. They've Joe Gladstone is there. He's him and I sort of have taken over the reins of the Indigenous group there from Dara Kelly and Kitty Dell and others. So I mean, it's important to have those spaces inside our academy. But the challenge is, how do we grow that? How do we move it beyond just being a sort of a place to meet into something that can spread the value of Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous scholarship within our academy, so that other parts of the academy can benefit from that kind of the way of thinking there. And then the third bit is Indigenous-led sort of approaches to associations. And one of them is, the abbreviation is IADIMOS, but it's the International Academy of Indigenous Management and Organizational Studies. It's a huge name. I think we need a new name for that outfit. But it's an Indigenous kind of led a sort of association that's drawing its own sort of strength from within itself, within the group itself. So Ana Maria Pereira Leopoldana, Jesse Pirini, and others are sort of leading that kind of initiative. So we have to, expect and provide for and support sort of Indigenous-led associations and figure out how do we partner with them and how do we enable them to grow and thrive as well. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Paris, please.
Yeah, I think as you have rightly mentioned that I have been quite active in EBA, European International Business Academy, and Academy of International Business Worldwide, where I also served as vice president for a couple of years. So there we have been doing lots of research, but there is now an increased, there are two things which are now really on the agenda. And one is that we should do impactful research. And the second is that our research or our development, knowledge development is sort of stagnating. We are not coming up with any new theories. We are working on the same and so on and so on. So there we together, I am also these days consulting editor for JIPS, which is the top journal in our field. And together with the editor-in-chief, we have written a editorial or a piece where we talk about or we call for disruptive research, that we must do research which is out of the normal, out of the what we normally doing. Our biggest problem has been that maybe it is in all sciences, but in our field, we feel that we are always doing confirmatory research. That means we build hypotheses from existing theories, and then we are striving to confirm them. In fact, if our study reject them, we change, tweak here and tweak there, and we are just doing confirmatory research. And that is not very good, because that is the reason why no new ideas are coming. So we need to do more exploratory research, more phenomena-based research, so that we can come with new. And what is also missing in our field, at least, is that these are silos. So we need to do interdisciplinary research. So everybody, economics is doing their own studies, and business studies are doing their own studies, and development studies are doing their own studies, and all these fields are related. So we have to learn from each other. We have to use each other's theories, and we have to work with these type of things. And the journal editors, as I said, JIPS, we have now asked for it. I was also founding editor for International Business Review, which I ran for almost 30 years. And there also we have now asked for more and more disruptive research, more and more interdisciplinary research. I think that's what is needed.
Yeah, Simon luckily also joined us again. Simon, can you hear us? Or even though without image, but your voice also can't.
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Great, great.
It's great also to learn from what my colleagues are doing. It's so exciting. It's really, I appreciate, because I admit that I was a little bit ignorant about some of the work that they've been doing, and it's very, very exciting, I guess that, my contribution is going to be more marginal because I talk to the mainstream. But let me just say about, some initiatives that I still feel very proud, because this is the bridge between the academia and the professional community. In the 80s, if you remember, the world was divided into East and West. East used to be the communist, West used to be the West, and the communists did not let a scientist a visa so they can attend some conferences in the West. So what I've decided to do with a couple of friends is set up an association. It's called ISVOV, the International Society for the Study of Work and Organizational Values. And we had all the biannual meetings in the East. So we did it in Poland, we did it in Czechoslovakia, we did it in Hungary, and so on and so forth. And I think it was an amazing bridge, and because we learned that I think scientists around the globe, people are people, we have a lot of commonalities. and what divides us are the regime, are the governments. And with the fall of the Berlin Wall, we had the first meeting in the West. I think it was in Barcelona, and for me, it also meant a new chapter in the life. So this is very interesting initiative. Another initiative is that when you develop concept, methodology, and tools, you create other communities that help a lot of people and managers. So in the field of coaching, for example, I created the Coaching by Value community that for the past 14 years have been training over 100,000 managers, people all over the world. I don't do it myself because everything is done through the communities that we've established, and they range from Australia to Singapore to Spain to LATAM to North America to South America, etc., etc. And obviously, what makes me feel very proud in my contribution is that we created a school of thought within the community of coaching that is being recognized by the International Coaching Federation. Last but not least, is that my way of trying to communicate new terms that are becoming buzzword. If I do research about values, and obviously I also held some official, typical academic position. I was the editor-in-chief of cross-cultural management for about 7 years. But what makes me happier is that when I see the number of downloads that I get reports from ResearchGate. ResearchGate is a place where scholars interchange and they download normally 3 papers. And when I get messages from ResearchGate that some of my papers are being loaded by 9,000 colleagues, scholars, those are the kind of things that really makes me very happy. So today I talk about the future, and and it's not easy because nobody knows what will happen in the future. So I think that some of my papers, some of my books are part academic with academic rigor, but part of it, the other part, is a little bit like Jules Verne. No, it's a little bit of imagination. So I'm combine hardcore reality, like we were trained with the rigor of the academia, but I do develop all kinds of scenarios. In 2010, I guess, ways before the academia, I wrote with Mario Reich a book. It's called Beyond and the organization in 30% of all the prediction that we made in 2010 became a reality today. We predicted pandemic. We didn't know it's going to be COVID, and it happened that we have a pandemic. We predicted terrorism, that few people, limited people can cause what before large army did. And it's happening nowadays. We predicted nuclear explosion, and it happened in Japan, and it happened in some other places, and so on and so forth. So it gave me really the courage to venture more into the future. And because I don't have to be limited in my writing and in my presentation by the normal traditional academic rules, because I don't do it, to get better position or to get a nomination. I feel like I can venture into it, and that's basically what I'm doing nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Indeed, you already talk about future. Time is so limited, so maybe I ask you just last question, but very, very shortly answer it maybe in 1 minute. So within at least maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Okay. So my last question is, what will be the next for your research and scholarly activity to continuously impact the community, academy, and the society? Just very briefly, then we give chance at least to 1 question. Yeah, please.
Oh,
Please,
okay.
Simon.
No, if it's me, I'm worried about the future of higher education. I'm really worried about it. In what sense? I think we became very bureaucratic. We change and we transform very, very, very slow. And the world is moving in a dynamic that will probably oblige us, if we want to be still relevant to society, to move much, much faster. I understand that there is the logic of curriculum, of program, but we need to move faster. And I'm testing it with my new digital book that is coming, and it's called The Future of Work. And the future of work right now doesn't appear in any curriculum in any faculty in the world. It doesn't exist. But what I gamble is that we're going to create the need to, and this is transversal because it's not for a faculty, and we will create a need to help people start to reflect that the future doesn't matter if they study medicine or engineering or architecture, and talk to me in a year from now to see how this new book will be received.
The education definitely is one of the concerns of all of us. Paris, very short, some of your next.
Thanks. I think it's a good idea to continue on what Simon has said, that we, of course, we are doing research on the externalities of multinational enterprises and what impact they have on the society and poor people and local firms, etc., etc. But at the same time, we should also, while we want to teach the multinational the responsibilities and that they must do responsible business, we should also see whether we are incorporating that into our curriculums or not, because that I feel is still there is a lot to do. That we have to see, because our students who go to business schools, they think they are there to learn how to make money. So we have to also teach them that how to make money responsibly and how to make contribution to the society. That should be the primary goal. And at the same time, of course, if you can make money or you can do successful businesses, that is very good. Thanks.
Thank you, Johnson.
3 things. One is more Indigenous management supervision. So more Indigenous PhD students. Number 2 is our associations, our management academies, really thinking about Indigenous development and how to incorporate that into the way in which they're governed and operate and the impact that they have. Number 3 is learning how to do Indigenous partnered research. So partnering with Indigenous groups so that they are in the driving seat of research, so that the research that we do has a tangible benefit and impact for Indigenous groups, and we're better at doing that kind of research and comfortable with it.
Great. Any question from audience before we conclude? I know Martin earlier maybe had 1 question. Yes, please, Martin.
Thanks, Ying, and thanks to the panelists. A quick question. I've watched the sessions yesterday, especially where the early career researchers were anxious to make an impact, such as the ones you've all been describing, and do good things, but also feeling pressure early in their early career stages to publish and feeling that tension. So can you give any quick bits of advice for early career researchers who perhaps see impactful research as a bit slow and long term and risky, right, compared to the easy ways of getting published?
Yeah, any panelists want to pick up to answer for time?
Yeah, I can do
please,
that.
Please, Paris.
So I think this is a very good question, especially for younger colleagues. And because publication pressure is very high and it's getting higher all the time, and it is a long process. It takes almost 2 years to get from sending in paper to getting published. But how younger colleagues can do good publication is, first of all, to be persistent, to keep on doing, because we all do get rejections, but that doesn't mean you should stop doing research, but to keep on doing research. And number two is that find collaborations, because these days, if you go through the journals, there is hardly any paper that is single author paper. So they are all multiple authors, because you have to find complementary capabilities in colleagues and friends from conferences, etc., so that you can work together with other people. I think that is the best way to go.
Thank you. Thank you for your inspirational question and also very conclusive answer. I think for the time reason, maybe we move to concluding the session. We have Sandro. Sandro, if some presidents, can you give us some words? And you're also a part of award committee member.
Yes, thank you, Hing. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to Simon, Jason, Pervez. Thanks a lot for your contribution and also for your very peculiar and relevant research, because you are an example for the young generation. And this award is also for this reason, because in IFSAM, and not only in IFSAM, but also in our member associations, the target of the young generation, as Martin underlined, is very important for us. And it's important to have on board the young people from the beginning of their career. I was very impressed about the we can say boost of innovation of your research, and I agree with your statement of we can say disruptive research, as Pervez said. We have to innovate to survive, and we have to innovate not only research, but as you underlined, also bridging with the practice, because obviously the examples that we have seen of your research is a very impactful research, and also thinking to teaching. And just to close, I want to underline the 3 pillars of IFSAM, because we work with a group and a vice president on research, working on statements and soft policies, statements on this on research and diversity in terms of topics, diversity in terms of approaches, methods, is something that is very important for IFSAM, putting together diverse perspectives and also cross-cultural and multidisciplinary. Practice is very important, because we have to work for our stakeholder, and the practice, the society, the managers are very important stakeholder for us. And last but not least, we are very engaged in education. We have to improve and to also innovate on this side. And we have 3 groups working on research, education, and practice. And what we are doing is also to use your research as a benchmark and example for our working groups. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Sandro. Thanks for all your audience and our awardee panelists. Thanks, and we conclude the session here, and see you around. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Thanks a
IFSAM.
lot.
Thank you, Jing.
Thank you. Congratulations again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.